We'll come back to talk about the exchange rate, but what is the implication of our depleted foreign reserve on our current situation?
Well, the reserves depletion came on the back of the collapse, you might say, in the price of crude oil. And the lower level of reserves had forced the naira to weaken, and as a matter of fact, it has forced the Central Bank of Nigeria to hands off, trying to defend the value of the naira. So you could say the naira is largely, floating at the moment. It wasn't a Nigerian problem. Okay. It was a global problem. We're talking of a fall in global oil price. And it surprised me, for example, when I tried to compare movements in exchange rates across, the leading markets, about 30 markets developed and emerging. The euro this year had weakened more than the naira. So you are in a turbulent global environment, and that's been reflected in our reserves.
That was like something that happened in 2008. Is it the same trend that happened like
I'm talking year-to-date movement in exchange rates. Okay. The euro this year has fallen more than the naira. Slightly more, we did like this year we've done like 25%. Year-to-date they've done like 28%. So they are not alone. It's not just the euro. Most currencies are weakening against the dollar now.
Yeah, but Mr. Teribaurge,
Nigeria included.
The comparison you're making is it valid, bearing in mind that our economy is based on imports? We hardly produce anything.
Our economy,
so we need so much foreign exchange.
Our economy is not based on imports. Imports is about 10 trillion naira in Nigeria. The economy is 80 trillion. We often exaggerate the role of imports. We are not that important. We could be dependent on import, on machinery, on refined fuels. Refined fuels is unnecessary. We should be able to
fix our own refineries.
But we are critically dependent on imports on the supply side. The dependence on imports on the demand side is weak. So we shouldn't exaggerate the role of imports. And therefore, we shouldn't also exaggerate the role of forex, exchange rate. Import is just, 1/8 of the economy. It's not 20, it's not 50%. It's not 1/4. So the domestic dynamics of the economy matter much more. You should worry more about inflation than you worry about devaluation, for example.
You need to do a little bit of explaining there. Worry more about the domestic factors that have to play with the economy than you worry about the imports. Now, the Nigerians out there, okay, what exactly does he mean by that? I mean, the Nigerian economy, 80 trillion, but imports just 10 trillion. What are the other factors that would need to come to play to ensure that the economy, now, my own, what's coming through my head is, let's break it down to the man who has to buy a loaf of bread.
Well, these things are all relevant to everybody because there's too much attention paid onto the foreign exchange regime. Most of what you saw happened from December towards the election was a front-loading of demand. And if you want me to break it down to the common man or to somebody who wants to be on the street, everything is a commodity. For instance, we all go to the gas station to buy petrol. In a situation, if your tank is at half tank and you are confident of the supply of fuel in the future and everything, it's unlikely you're going to stop at the fuel station. You probably wait until maybe your tank has got to quarter, you delay and you can procrastinate. And when it finally gets critical, you say, let me make my stop, because you are confident that when you get there, you'll find the fuel. But in a situation where you find yourself that you're perceiving that there might not be fuel, not only might you want to fill up at half tank, but there's a tendency you want to hoard some of that fuel in case there's not supply.
That's right.
So I think that is how we need to break it down. So in Nigeria, we have had that siege mentality of always trying to focus on foreign exchange. And if you take a look at also the diversification of the economy, our economy is mostly an agrarian-based economy. And most of the inputs into this have very little import content. And I think as Ayo has said, if you take a look at the amount, if the import part of your economy is only 1/8 of your economy, import is 1/8 of your economy, then you have to begin to understand what are the rest of the other priorities and how we pay attention to that. I think also from a different perspective is that what we need to focus on really is what we term in the economy is what we're looking at as the implementation and the maintenance of the cyclical variations in the policy fluctuations, i.e., whenever the oil prices are high, $114, $110, we don't complain in Nigeria. All of a sudden, the oil prices drop by 40, 50%. Some state governors are saying, oh, they've cut my allocation from the federal, and half of them don't even know what's happening. But the problem is that, or the challenge that will face the incoming government is that we had excess crude account in 2008, which you mentioned at that point in time, of about $22 billion. It was that excess crude account that saw us through that system and a lot of the intervention the government did, AMCON and all those other things, to be able to buffer economy against that shock. Now, by the time this shock came, we only had $4 billion in our excess crude account. And in order to weather any storm, we have to have a minimum of $15 billion in excess crude. But the governors do not, that is what they don't tell you. And this is where I have an issue. The governors don't agree with the federal government. They always want to share that money. We want the money, we want the money, we want the money. They don't save for a rainy day. And that is what we need to stop. We created the Sovereign Wealth Fund to do this. The Stabilization Fund today in our Sovereign Wealth Fund is only $200 million, which is a shortfall of about $14.8 million that we require. So just like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Dubai, where we all love to go to, Kuwait, Norway, and all these countries that have diversified their economy by making investments in their sovereign wealth fund, this government needs to do that so that when there's a shock in the oil prices, we don't feel it. The Saudis are not complaining about low oil prices. The only countries complaining about low oil prices, Nigeria, Venezuela, and Russia.